Can you give us a preview and talk about what people can expect to see very shortly from your reporting?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a multi-part series, and I pitched the idea focused on COVID-19 prevention efforts for vulnerable communities. The first part of the series is documenting the scope of the devastating impact of COVID in congregate care facilities, especially those with elderly residents. And to show that we have the cases that are documented and the outbreaks, the deaths, and the cases, the COVID cases among residents and workers there. And I talked with public health and staff people of these facilities, just explaining why long-term care and assisted living residents were so vulnerable to COVID once it got in, and the mitigation efforts that they did once it was there and how they tried to manage it. So it's kind of really documenting the scope. And the first thing I did with help from Gianna was put out a survey to ask people, could you just tell me a little bit about your experiences with, whether you be a staff person, a resident, a relative, with living in these facilities and your impact. So I think that was definitely the most challenging thing, was finding the people and having them, respond back to me. And then another story is kind of focused on this post-vaccine life, and now what it's like that residents are vaccinated and how they can get back to having events or getting their hair done, getting their nails done, being able to eat in communal dining, and how things are kind of slowly transitioning now to how things were before COVID hit. So that's another story that I'm focused on. And then lastly, I'm focusing on farm workers and trying to tell the story of how many farm workers have died of COVID, what it was like working and going to work every day, and what preventative efforts were coming down from the state, and who was doing what, and understanding how farm workers were impacted, and focusing on a task force that public health and out of UCSB helped create. And they had several meetings and looking back at what they were doing in time and trying to adjust to what was really going on and what was needed now, whether that be sanitation kits to farm workers or educational materials about COVID in Spanish, translation and such. So it's a lot of different angles and stories and pieces, but it's digested into several different stories and broken up for readers. And yeah, that's basically it.
Well, it's going to be really cool to see that reporting. I'm looking forward to reading it. And I'm sure all of our, everyone who reads Noozhawk is going to really enjoy it. So it's going to be really cool. And you had to write that application, like you had to apply for a grant for money. And it's like, sort of, that's difficult in itself, I mean, think about all the people who apply who don't get it, you get it. So good job there.
And I pitched the idea back in, it was either late September or October. So we had our summer spike, and then COVID cases were kind of going back down, and then they spiked right back up again. And then during the winter, so I was trying to figure out, like, how is this, where am I going to take this story? We're having a huge winter spike, and then we kind of went down, and then vaccines got rolled out. So it was really like, I compiled it to really like what was happening now. I kind of went in with an idea, and it grew and evolved depending on what was going on in the pandemic. And I never thought we would, have vaccines at this point. So it's pretty cool. I like how it's going to come out.
That's an interesting model where, you can apply to get grant, to get funding, that you get to do some special project on top of everything else you have to do for Noozhawk. I don't think we cut you loose for 3 months and said, or they cut you loose for 3 months and said, go do that. You still had to do everything that you were doing for the most part.